All right, welcome everybody to today's community meeting. Let me start sharing screen. We have a couple of things on the agenda, so very excited to talk about them. The first topic I want to kind of talk about is actually KubeCon because it's coming really, really soon. So I think it's important to kind of talk about it, make sure, we can submit as we can. Let me admit somebody. Oh, thank you. So as far as I know, I think Denise, you already submit something about K-Agent and also your customer control plane. Is is that true?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Good luck to you on that. I would also highly recommend you submit to some of the Colo as well. I believe the Colo CFP is also open. So for that one, I think maybe I think there's a Colo related to AI. Is that right? I would think it's definitely related to there. I believe there is also a Colo related to platform engineering, which I think yours might be interesting. I mean, I didn't look at the details of what you have because the link you send, I don't believe we have access. But based on the demo you showed, I think we have a rough idea on what you are submitting. So I would also recommend you submit to Platform Engineering Day, which I think it's a good fit. And is yours also using GitOps com? Maybe that's relevant too.
Saying what?
Is your submission also related to GitOps com? Maybe that's another one.
GitOps.
GitOps. Thank you. And
Yeah.
so the Cloud Native Kubernetes AI Day, I think I would recommend you submit to those as well. If you submit anything related to K-Agent, if it's relevant on these Colo events, I think it's a good shot too, because Colo typically do have a higher acceptance rate, so we don't want to miss the opportunity for that. Just so everyone knows, the best practice is to submit to KubeCon and the Colo. So as a conference reviewer, they do recommend people to do that.
There is also a RejectCon. So if you miss KubeCon, yeah, you always have the RejectCon.
That is so true. The only thing I know about RejectsCon is a little bit different because you don't get official KubeCon tickets, right? So it's less perks, and you have to work on the weekends because the RejectsCon is always on the weekend, which means you probably have to, work the entire weekends to speak at the conference, to traveling. So I would always rate KubeCon much higher and the Colo also much higher than Rejects. But you're right, we could submit there too. So thank you so much for submission for that. And I think Peter and Jason is submitting another one, right? And I know Eitan, we tried to hook you up with somebody on the OPEA team. Probably need you to follow through on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking, I don't know if Dimitro or Chris, I know you guys have been pretty active in the community. Do you have any interest to submit something that might be really helpful? Because I think this is a super hot topic. So I do think the chance to be accepted is relatively high because it's in the hot topic of AI and platform engineering, it's like, by the way, I just come from a trip from KCD, Texas last week. and Chris Anizek, who is the CNCF CTO, was speaking there about the future of cloud native, and K-Agent was highlighted as one of the key projects for the future of cloud native, and how do we enrich cloud native to the next 10 million users of cloud native. So he highlighted a couple of projects like Headlamp is one of the projects he highlighted. DAPA Agent is another project he highlighted. And there was another sandbox project related to how to represent the model in OCI image. I forgot the name, but that's another thing he highlighted, and also K-Agent. So I was super excited about K-Agent was highlighted there as well. So I do recommend you all think about submission, because I think it has a really good chance to be submitted and accepted, especially we're looking at not just the main KubeCon and also Colo, right? Because we could even submit to like cloud native universities and teach people how to interact with some of the cloud native project using natural language. So I think that's a good one too. We could submit to ArgoCon, like Chris, the work you are doing with MCP server for Argo. I think that's amazing. If you're interested in being a speaker at KubeCon, I would highly encourage you to do some submission on that. We're also working with the Kavano team. So if anybody have interest, we're interested in a joint submission between K-Agent and Kavano. So that could potentially be submitted. And platform engineering day, I think it's a key area of focus of K-Agent. So if anybody have any interest, feel free to reach out to me or Peter. We're here to help you. And, you know, it's always exciting to be a speaker at KubeCon, because one thing I really love about it is you don't need to worry about people showing up in your talk. It's just the conference so well attended, so that's the last thing you have to worry about, which is super, super cool. All right, so enough KubeCon recruitment. I'm going to stop here unless somebody else have any questions on this. All right, I'm not hearing any questions, but I do highly recommend you guys to consider. So the deadline is next Tuesday. All right, I don't think, do we have Christian Posta here? I don't think he joined, so maybe we'll skip that question, because a couple of you had questions on his demo. I'll ping him. Maybe Dimitri will jump onto your topic, deploy K-Agent on using Azure backend.
Yeah, I wanted to push it till the end, since I have some restore of my environment right now, because I run out of space. I'm still rerunning a couple of things to show it. So do we have any other topics maybe to discuss?
Okay,
and
yeah.
At the end, I will do it.
Yeah, got you. Let's jump to other topics. So Peter, I know the most K-Agent has passed a couple of releases now. I think there was a release just over the weekend. So Peter, maybe you can highlight some of the changes for us, like those. I've been reading about a lot of change, but I think it would be more interesting to hear directly from you or Eitan.
Yeah, so the biggest change that went in was the backend API that got revamped. Previously, we were using WebSockets from the UI to do the chat. That's not happening anymore. So the WebSocket thing is gone. I think there are some places in the code where we still have to remove stuff, but there's a completely new backend, new API that's persistent. It can persist to sessions. Yeah, that was the biggest change. Nothing else has changed like functionally from the outside necessarily. It should still continue working the way it was working. The only thing that you'll probably see is on the left side, you'll actually see the sessions now. So you can go and click through your chats and get the history of the chats.
You can download them now as of
Yes.
yesterday.
Yeah, Dimitro, I added the download the chat functionality yesterday after we talked, so you can download like the chat messages and all that. Yeah, and I think the
Yeah.
next. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say this unlocked like a lot of functionality. I can also present something real quick, Lynn, if you don't mind.
Yes, please do. By the way, I have a question. I've actually installed pretty recent K-Agent, I think last week. So how does this session save and reuse work? Like if I if I ask my Istio agent some questions, like maybe I have 5 sessions, I can go
Yeah,
back
I'll show you,
from
Lynn.
the
There you
session,
go.
resume. Okay, thank you. Yes.
So
I
basically,
was
so right now
afraid
it's
to use
all
it.
so right now it's all stored in the pod. But I think one of the nice things that this allows for is or first of all, is this big enough? Really, you only need the terminal.
Yeah, we can see it. I don't know if other people can see it. I have a big monitor.
Yeah, I can see
So
it.
one of the biggest thing that this is allowed for is one of the complaints that we got internally actually was that the CLI was pretty difficult to use. And so I've also revamped the CLI to be mostly non-interactive. So you can still access the interactive mode. So for example, if I do agent, it will still open up in the interactive mode. But I can now, a lot of the commands will work in a non-interactive way. So for example, I can do uh, just run help, and now you'll see that a lot of the commands that were originally in the interactive mode are here. So what this allows for is it allows for essentially one-off commands if you want to install, uninstall, but also it allows for what we're calling uh, invoke, which invoke is basically just a way to invoke, right, to run any of the agents that you have running in the cluster. And I think this is like super duper powerful. It allows for like really easy testing outputs, etc. So now on Beholden, I can just run, let's say I have my Kubernetes agent and I want it to list all the pods in the cluster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to do invoke, I'm going to pass it the agent name, and then I'm going to pass it, I'm going to say that I want it to be streaming, and I'm going to get the task from standard in, and I'm going to list all the pods in my cluster. So it's going to go ahead and it's going to ask and say, okay, I'm going to list all the pods. Here are all the pods. Right now, this is not associated with a session, but if I want, now I can go do get sessions. It's going to tell me my sessions. I have one session called hello. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now attach this to a session, right, which is hello. And now it's going to do it again. And it's going to say, okay, I'm going to go get all your pods. But now, again, so if I were to ask just my general agent, right, what sorts of things it's done so far. So I'm going to go back to the one that doesn't have a session, right? And I'm going to instead ask it, what questions have I asked so far? And it's going to come back and it's going to tell me that I have no idea. This is you have asked, what have I asked? Because there is no current conversation. It just dies. Now, if I go to the one with the session, right? This is again a contrived example, but it's going to come back and it's going to know all the questions that I've asked so far. So again, it seems simple, but this unlocks like this, for us, right, to be able to run this from CI, right, to be able to run this from anywhere. And of course, we don't have actually, I don't know if I implemented this, but we'll be able to output this in JSON format, right, so that it can be parsable, like machine parsable, et cetera, et cetera. So this, I think this is really exciting personally because
Yeah.
but obviously, love to hear what you guys think about this.
Yeah, it's awesome. But the next question is like, which is obvious? Is it MCP compatible?
So it's A2A compatible. It's not MCP compatible.
Okay.
So that's a good question. We can also make it MCP compatible, but it is A2A compatible, yeah. So there's another command, and actually we probably need to unify that approach a little bit. So right now, one of the things that we need to do is we need to figure out, so this version of invoke, it passes a lot of metadata along, which allows us to parse, right, on the client what things have happened. Whereas A2A, it doesn't actually have all that information yet. So we need to figure out, and I'll create an issue for this, essentially like how we're going to pass the data along in the A2A stream of, you know, what tools have been called, etc., so that the user, so that we can the user, if they want, right, can display that information in whatever client side application they have. Because right now it's just passing the text back. But for example, up here, right, I was able to see in my invocation, right, what was called and with what arguments. And so that's helpful for me to understand, right, like as a developer, right, as someone building this, that's helpful for me to understand that. Now, a user of this might not care that at all, right? Or they might, I don't know, right? It really depends who the target audience is.
So if I want
Yeah.
to find out some of the answers for any of the previous three questions in your example, I would have to re-ask the question. Is that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it'll already have the answer. But now you can follow up, right? So you can say,
You could
you know,
actually now reference kube proxy 9W2FM.
right, exactly.
And
I can say,
give me the, or whatever, right?
give me more information about
Or
pods.
ask what is the IP address of kube proxy, right? And it's not good.
Yeah,
Theoretically, it wouldn't have to call any of the tools because it already has that thing there.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it's still
So,
called it, right? But
oh no, but that's a good one. Get me the IP address.
because it might know already. I think again, it all comes down to how the system prompt is created in the end.
Got you. Now, does it still needs to talk to the large language model to figure out the IP address of a kube proxy?
In this case, yeah. So it
Well, it calls the
always
tool, right?
it always has to reach out to the LLM because it has to understand what you're asking it,
Okay.
right? It can't just, you know, it is the brain here is the LLM. It has to, but yeah. So here we go. So it knows the name, and it in this case it did get all of the pods again. So you know, and who knows why it's doing that, but yeah, I think that's probably more of a system prompt issue.
Ethan, I have a question.
Mhm.
Is there any options to switch between sessions?
So
Yeah.
if I wanted to here, I could just pass a different session name and it would immediately switch.
I noticed this. And my second question, is the sessions isolated? So can I catch another person's session?
Can
Right
you
now, yes.
What do you, oh, are they, there's no authentication between them in the
Yeah.
model that I'm using, no.
So just the name. So I can connect, I can just pass hello, and I can intercept your session, actually, your history. Yeah?
Theoretically, yes.
So again,
But we don't
the
have
auth,
anything, yeah.
yeah, auth will come on top, right? There's no, like, we need to, so I think there's two levels of authentication, right? There's something that we're gonna have to add through the UI, and then there's also, you know, if you want to add authentication to the CLI, then we'll probably need to pass a token of some description. But that I think is captured by, there's an issue that we have open about multi-tenancy. But you are right. Today, anyone can intercept your session.
Okay.
Reminds me a lot of like Tmux or Screen or something. Like you can kind of connect to sessions and whatnot. And then secondly, like this seems to unlock like integrated testing now. So like we can do some level of validation testing or integration testing or something, because we can just output this through the CI, like a pipeline or something. Yeah.
So AutoGen actually has a system of evals where you feed it essentially the output of this and then run evaluations with different engines on the outputs. So we're planning on adding. We're actually planning on doing that next.
And this,
Evals will like, especially for
Um,
our type of our system that we're working on here is Kubernetes. Is the idea for evals, are we going to provide some sort of sandbox way to run those, or mock out the actual tools that get called and feed in specific responses that we want, or what do you think that looks like?
I mean, I think at first it's just create a client cluster, break it, tell it to fix it,
All right,
and if
so
it,
okay.
Well,
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's multiple aspects to evals, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, yeah, it is what you said, Christian, but I think what you said is like we would have to do that through the CI if we wanted to like break the cluster and then run it, and but yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay, so for that we're pretty close. We have a automation test
to
that we
run,
can run.
yes.
Do
Yeah,
that,
yeah, and that's unrelated to evals necessarily.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just running unit tests.
What kind of storage used for memory and for these history sessions? I mean, for the answers.
it's all in a SQL database right now. That's in the pod in an SQLite.
SQLite. Okay.
and this will
But I
on
mean,
the,
we should be able to
Yeah.
maybe we can't yet, but eventually we would want to configure that, right?
There's an issue to like externalize where like to not just for the sessions, for everything, right? That we store, we should externalize that database so it's not inside the container, right?
So I have a question. If you want to use Postgres, let's say with cloud native PG or something, is it okay?
With what?
Postgres as cloud native Postgres.
Yeah. It should be anything Postgres compatible.
Yeah. And I think
just-
honestly, the way that it's implemented in Autogen, this database thing, it's just pointing to a file, right? So if that file is right now, the file is inside of the container, but if we reconfigure it, we can have the file in like a volume.
Well,
somewhere.
no, it's not going to be a
Right.
file. It'll
Right
be a
now, it
database
is a
database.
file, right? Right now, it's a file.
Yeah, but that's just because it's SQLite. Like the engine, it's just an SQL engine, so it should be able to point to Postgres.
Yes. Yeah. We'll just need. Yeah. There's an issue open if anyone wants
Yeah.
to tackle that one.
But we definitely know it's important.
so if I use this on the UI, do I get the history of the answer or just the
Oh,
question?
that's a great question. So if I now,
Yeah, you get the chat that you did, right?
Okay,
if I bring it up,
and the response too.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
like you'll see whatever you saw when you were chatting with the
Okay.
thing.
That's pretty cool.
let me bring up my previous session. So let me just share that screen instead. Present something else. Nope. Stop. Stop. Oh my God.
Is there a way to just
Sorry.
see like the last thing it said? Maybe just tailing out the last. Maybe you're not asking it anything. You just want to ask, what's the last thing you said?
Yeah. So that is not available yet. This is hot off the press. I agree that's probably should be like to be able to view a session or view it, in your logs. So I'm gonna add chat as well. Those are all very much things that I want. So if we take a look at the UI for this for a hot second, you'll see here that again I interacted with this completely via the CLI, but now if I go back to my session, right, we have all of the questions that I asked. And it's all just here. So it's all the same, right? And again, I can go back to CLI, I can invoke it, it's going to be here, it goes back and forth. It's all the same session. It's all backed by the same data.
Yeah.
Christian, this is probably the first you're seeing of this too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I was seeing it working. Yeah.
yeah. Oh no, I'm just kidding. So this, so we're pretty excited about this. But It'd be cool,
It's really cool.
or maybe that's what Jason was talking about. But like, can you, while like, is there a way to get that information to stream it out, so you can constantly be watching it?
That's what I was. Yes, that's kind of what I was getting at.
What do you mean constantly watching?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Like I'm imagining,
Like-
like for me, I would imagine,
Yeah.
like let's say we asked the agent to do something, and maybe there's some data that it has to collect. It has to talk to other agents or whatever. Could we watch it talk to other like entities or use like MCP, or like could we kind of inspect what it's saying, or could we just?
So that's
Sorry,
what's
go ahead.
happening. That's so if you look at the stream, right? Like when I was running it earlier, it said that it called a tool, right? There's a verbose mode where it tells you everything that
Oh,
it
okay.
asked and all this stuff. So it's when you put it in stream mode, it's already telling you everything, every tool that it's calling. Those tools can be agents, right? So like it's already doing that. Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, can we get programmatic access to that stream? Like I want to, for example, Peter, I think did you show the memory stuff last week on one of the live streams?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And so right at the moment, memory is like this database that you can go pull and query for likeness and then add some context. But if I'm running a multi-turn chat, and what would be interesting is if I could stream that somewhere and have another process watching for that, and then deciding, oh, this is interesting, we should save this back into our memory. So some way to process the stream or audit the stream as it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Basically, like a log tail. I think that's what
Yeah.
Jason was saying. Of like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So we don't have that right now, but for sure we could add that. I don't know that it would be. Yeah, it's interesting.
How would that
Yeah.
be useful? I'm trying to. What would the scenario be there?
Oh, a number of things. One, I mean, obviously you're watching and you can try to identify like what's happening on the stream. Like that's the most basic. You can put it through all kinds of content and filter analysis and say, oh, this is not good.
Did it do
But
something that I didn't tell it to do, right? And it just
Right,
it's
yeah.
communicating something that I didn't ask it to communicate, and it's kind of, I don't know, hiding that from me, or I want to see that, right? I want to be able to.
Yeah. But then the use case that I was thinking is more, hey, can we summarize this and store it in the database? Not the full thing, because I'm not going to manually go back and look at it or copy and paste things, but I want to understand what could the agent have learned through this session and store that for later.
Yeah, but that would be just a matter of acting on something that already happened, right?
For the live session, but I'm thinking future sessions.
Yeah. But I'm saying you wouldn't necessarily need to tap into the stream as it's happening in order to do that, right? It would be the user who would
Unless we
have
build
to-
something into K-Agent, or unless you give us query access to the database or something like that. But I'm thinking of it through the lens of I'm watching this thing. All right, it's going. All right, now is a good time for us to take a summary, and you might still be working because we learned something, and I want to capture that.
I think it's a really cool idea because like one of the demo you showed, Christian, we were actually talking about before you joined. We talked about it last week, right? From using the MCP server for GitHub and
Yeah.
submit a PR and then using Argo to be able to sync the change back to the environment to fix the issue. Like, how do you enable other people to replay that scenario? That's actually, I'm thinking about like the stuff Eitan you just demoed, to be able to download the session and maybe have an environment to replay the session. It's pretty powerful in addition to auditor monitoring you all just talk about.
Yeah, especially for the terminal CLI, there are a number of recorders which allows you actually to record the full terminal session and replay it. I think it's also interesting thing for demos.
But
Yeah.
But that would go into like the workflow realm, right? In a way. Because you cannot, like, what would replaying the thing do? What would you expect if you already have a conversation history that consists of user questions, let's say tool calls, memory lookups, and the responses that are non-deterministic? What would you actually replay? Would you just take the user inputs and start with that, and then, because you cannot control what the LLM returns, right? You cannot control the tools that it's going to call.
Yeah, but you can potentially start at a different.
But that, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. At that point, it's a debugger, right? In a way, in a workflow.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Where you would say, hey, load up this session, right? And you would paste in that JSON, whatever it is, and then you would go through the, I'm talking UI, right? In the UI, you could go and say, edit this message and say, run from here, right? That's how it would, but that's like a workflow. But I'm still trying to understand the stream and why would someone need to tap into the stream at the point, like at the moment that it's happening, versus wait until the response is sent back from the agent and then act on it.
Well, you would get that too if it's a stream, right?
Yeah, but the stream is basically, the stream is you're sending back, the way that it works today, it's like a bunch of chunks that are sent back as the model is streaming it back to you. I don't see, I mean, sure, you can tap, let me put it this way, you can tap into that today if you want to, right? But then you would have to implement it on your own, right? Versus using a UI or a CLI, right? Because you would have to listen for specific events on, hey, the tool was called, here's another chunk of the message that was being sent, or memory was called, right? You can do that today. I just don't see the value of, at least not for the streaming responses, right? There might be a value for tool is being called, right? And you can act on it to do something.
I think auditors would want to see everything.
And that's stored. Yeah, that's stored. I think the stream of what was happening is stored. I just don't.
But what I'm saying is they might want to build analytics on top of what's happening right now. I mean, we see that in general with log events and stuff as people are, or you put click events right through Kafka or something, and people build all kinds of auditing tools that are, oh crap, these three things happen, we need to trigger an alert.
I may sound a little ignorant here, but I don't know. Is there any like defense mechanisms that like you're noticing a pattern that an agent is continuously saying over and over that has some various, and you want to catch it or something as it's saying? I don't know. I'm not a security guy, but it just seems like that would be a use case.
Well, let me ask you this, Peter. Let me ask you this, Peter.
I don't know.
If I had a Kubernetes agent and I'm going through and I'm doing stuff, but then I also have another agent that knows how to save off memory for this Kubernetes agent, how could I do that?
To do what? The second agent is
I have another agent I spin up to help me remember things that's happening in that Kubernetes when I'm interacting with that Kubernetes agent.
So you mean you can load on the fly a rug from Kubernetes or something?
Like if I go through and if you all saw that the demo that I did, right? The first part of the demo was, hey, something's broken. Now let's go debug and figure it out. Ran through, let's say, 20 steps. Oh, and eventually I figured it out. I will want something to be able to watch this thing either as I go, maybe after, but certainly like I want to be able to watch this and say, oh, okay, well, this is how we figured it out this time.
Yeah.
And if I happen to see the same thing, I don't want to go back through 20 or it could be 30 steps, right? I wanted to say, oh, you know what? I've seen this before. Why don't we try looking in this one area where we solved the problem before, right? And in my head, I was thinking if I built a little memory agent that'll work alongside what I'm doing, then then I can capture that information.
It pretty much sounds like a reinvent of the IDE history. It's like a cursor, because this is some kind of example for the key agent usage. So we don't play, for example, with the key agent CLI. We just integrate it with the voice conversation agent, with the cursor as a tools and whatever. So, and all this already implemented with the IDE, for example, for the cursor. So you have the key history, you can back to any history, you can recall the tool and whatever. So this is the real.
I mean, that's nice. That sounds like you're saying that it's baked into the IDE.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we've talked about too. Can we bake memory, this type of memory thing, into K agent? But what if I have a very specific way that I want to handle remembering things? I want to run the previous chat through an LLM and help me summarize and pull out key points that I've trained that are like, you can be very, what you choose to remember, can vary.
Yeah, I see the yes.
I think you're trying to extract not only this memory, the kind of knowledge which is connected to certain different things, right? And I think the regular graph is not handling that very well. It's not enough. You need to have either the graph run, where you have certain connections and certain conditions where it is triggered for that memory. And what I was thinking in that relation, if let's say you have a graph right for your different knowledge base. Also, if you look on Kubernetes is also something which can be represented as a graph kind of structure with different states and different things. And we would need to synchronize something which is happening from API server, from the current etcd and so on, from the state, to that kind of graph RAG state. So maybe in future we will see this kind of natural real-time synchronization. So you have a DOM for Kubernetes, which is constantly keeping it updated, and then your LLM can talk and ask this question, and then you don't need to go through this. Like you're trying to push this knowledge into the formal sentence, into our words, right? And maybe this knowledge should exist as a graph representation for the LLM directly.
I guess that's synonymous to like having a KB articles, right? For humans, right? We don't necessarily bury it in us. We just go to the knowledge base and say, hey, how do you do that? And I guess we're kind of could do the same thing. Once we learned a certain way to do something, we can store that outside in like some sort of KB of, some knowledge.
Yeah, but what Christian was referring to, if you ask 20 questions and among these 20 answers, you will have a similarity for some patterns, right? It's only one pattern out of 20. So this pattern is kind of like a vector in the sense, right? It's also like a combination of failed state of gateway, maybe bad connectivity for some host, and some status of the routes or whatever, and this is, and perhaps we can also index and have in the kind of Kubernetes state, which is represented as a relation between several hosts. And if you have the same state failure together in combination, then you can extract this solution of this part of memory. It's like when you visually see something, you spot just a person by subconscious process. You just see it immediately. The same way you can spot the incidents, maybe.
Gotcha.
So I mean, so right now we do stream from the backend, right? So the UI is consuming that. I'm assuming, Eitan, there's no, it shouldn't be too hard to duplicate that stream to something else, or for an end user to add another listener, right? That's independent from the UI or whatever. And that listener, if you tap into it, it's just going to stream you all the events and whatever is happening, regardless of which agent is talking, right? Or whatever's happening. It's just like a tap filter, pretty much in Envoy, right? You just tap in and then send me events there, and then the user can do whatever it needs to do, right? So there's a way to do that. Like I think I understand what you're trying to say with the I want to act on, like I want to store that memory as it, like I want to store the result of what's happening, but before I store it, I need to figure out, I need to summarize it, I need to extract the key point,
I need to understand
whatever it
yeah.
is. I'm just thinking, yes, you could do it while the stream is happening. I don't know if that's necessarily, it might be a run scenario, you know.
Honestly.
It makes sense for I want to tap into it and do whatever you want, but that's enabled for you, right? But for the purpose of actually summarizing and storing it, and while it's happening, I don't know, because you don't have full information, right?
Yeah.
Like
It
as
could
the
be-
stream is happening, you might then you someone would have to figure out when is the good point to go and summarize something, you know, and figure out does this make sense or does it not make sense? You know what I mean? Versus if I send a request to an agent and I get back a response, at that point I've gotten a response and I've got the full response and I can act on it and decide, do I want to summarize it? Do I want to simplify it? You know? And then at that point, we could automatically store it in some sort of memory. So the next question that you ask, it's going to use that memory from the previous, you know, like a summarized memory, if you will, or whatever you want to do with that in the next chat.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, it's probably possible for the agent as it's producing the response that there's something else that's validating what's happening and figuring out what's happening and then feeding that back in to this agent that's streaming at the moment, and then this agent would have to probably stop and recreate the response. I don't know, you know what I mean? It feels like it's a
Kind of
continuous
reinforcement, like kind of.
it's like you Jason, talking at me, interrupting you all the time and giving you more information, and then you keep restarting what you're trying to say. It can probably be implemented, right? I just don't know, like.
Peter, just to illustrate the what I was talking previously, I found this article where you see the regular RAG or the regular information, kind of the chunks and things, if they are not connected, you know, the chances that we will get a real one and good one, it's like, you know, it's a bit random, right? So also in the recent demos and things presented on this Microsoft build, like something from yesterday, they had a session there about something very similar about graph RAG and how it helps to improve things. And basically here on this picture, you can see that the knowledge is a bit more than just those chunks and groups. And it's actually includes kind of like relations and graph relations and things like that. Also, like in your system, if you index the Kubernetes and if you have like all the different objects, different things, some of them related, some of them not. Right, and if you make your analysis, you have also the basically if you're searching for something that you still don't know, you probably following some kind of decision tree where you can there are some attempts to automate the you know the analysis, like the incident analysis in automatic way. So you can have a formal tree which will go step by step, right? Like starting from one part of the system and then moving forward. And so I think this kind of components will be important for us and in order to extract and do this.
Yeah, but this would be built throughout all the, let's say you install K-Agent, we know that you're in the cluster, we could start building this knowledge, this graph thing in the backend already, right?
Right. And the process is like on one side you're adding knowledge, and then one you kind of vacuum cleaning, because if something like, you know, pod restarted, it doesn't exist, you don't need it, right? You need to clean up your RAG.
Yeah, it's like constantly being updated. But that's the knowledge from like the environmental knowledge in a way, right?
Right.
But then also I understand like what Christian was saying, you're getting responses back, and not everything should necessarily be included in that knowledge, right? Not all the responses that you get back.
No. Like,
but it wouldn't have to go through something.
But
right?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you're going to watch to see to determine whether you're going to get to a point where, oh, okay, now all of this, now is a good time to look at all of it and summarize it, right? I'm not going through every single response and trying to put that back into memory. What I'm saying is, because 90% of what the chat was could just be garbage, but that last 10%, there was something that we found and would be good to remember that.
Yeah. By the way, can the user actually indicate which session they want to save? Because most of
Well,
the
what they can do, what we could do is have thumbs up, thumbs down
Yeah.
during the responses, and you can give flags, you know,
Yeah,
label the
yeah,
information.
Yeah. There's that's like I have a I started working on that. We have thumbs up, thumbs down. Like we can store the raw, like
Oh, nice. So that,
this is
by,
the
that
actual
would be,
this is the actual response that was like thumbed up or thumbed down. And
yeah.
here are all the preceding messages that happened.
Oh, okay. So
But
that would be really
what
good.
I'm saying is the thing that threw me off is when you're saying I want to tap into as it's happening and
I was
doing the
trying to
thing,
generalize
like,
it because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not the only use case.
Yes, yeah. So there's a use case of auditing whatever where you can tap in and just listen to whatever's happening and then you act on it. And that one is dynamic. It's just going on. You can listen in and you can stop listening, whatever. But this one is more of the response is created. Now the user or at some point another system can make a decision whether this was good or bad and then do something with the data, right? But I think the first step is allowing the users to do thumbs up, thumbs down, and then classify why was it good or why was it bad. Store that raw data, which like we're almost there to do that. And that's like the first step. That's fairly straightforward. The second step is going to be hard, where we're like, okay, so what are we going to do with this data?
I mean, we could just make that data available and let end users decide.
Yeah, we could because I think the user.
I think it also depends what you actually running, which scenario or flow. If you're running some kind of incident response, right, you will report it as incident report at the end for S3. And it's quite formal. You can just have a prompt explaining what do you want to extract, what to generate, in which format, and which details.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be independent of. That wouldn't be in the chat interface itself, right? I think in the chat, as you're going through the things, you can say, oh, okay, this was good, this was bad. We'll store it, but then you would come back later, I'm assuming, right? Through a different interface, I guess, and say, let me look at my data, right? And see what happened. I mean, it could be in the chat interface, right? And see what I can do with, oh, here are the snippets that I stored. They were good, they were bad.
Right, but the scenario is not only like, you run something, you have a chat, you have a data, and then on top of it, you kind of run another LLM attempt with different prompts, right? So it's basically a recursive thing. So if you go this direction, you can have unlimited extensions, like it depends what you want. You can have also like drop down with predefined prompts, like what everyone is doing now is personalization. They put in the IDE this instructions in B, everyone has slightly different things there, right? And it can be done as well, like what do you do with this output?
Yeah, that's we have to figure out what are the what are the scenarios. Like I know we talked about like having a either cluster-wide or agent-wide memory where all these thumbs up, thumbs down are stored somehow, and then they're used across all of your agents, let's say, right? Somehow, either as a
but this is what I mean. The way between the big history, right? Unprocessed history, the clean history of the chat transfers into the memory. This is sounds like a pipeline, and this pipeline can be configured per need. Like in some cases, you want to extract just incident reports. In other cases, you want to tune your prompts. You want to maybe like improve your prompt engineering, right? In another case, you're testing something totally different. You're testing data, you're testing prompt, you're testing system, environment. In each case, you'll have a different path to memory and different knowledge bases, maybe not more than one, right? So it's
I'm just thinking like what I like thinking from the end user, like what would they want to do and how, like what is the easiest UX for them to do that, right? Because like we have raw data. Let's say we store the raw data. what is the next step? How do we give, like, how do user has access to the data, but how can we help them go from that, the image that you saw, that you showed, right? Go from that information to the actual knowledge thing. How can we help, right? To bridge that gap, to say, you have the raw data, you have the raw data of all of your chats, you have the data of your feedback. How do we take that and do some magic with it so it feeds in for the next time that you want to use it, or you want to create reports, or whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
I think
Hey, so
that-
we're running up on time, or maybe we're even over time. But I do have a question for folks here, especially for the folks that are working on Kubernetes platforms and maybe debugging or building tools for CI/CD and that kind of stuff. What is your primary or preferred way of working? And what I mean by that is, what tool are you sitting in front of VS Code or Cursor? Are you prefer to go to dashboards or the CLI? The reason why I'm asking is because K-Agent today offers a CLI and a web-based UI, right? Is that can we improve the way that in your workflows, that we expose things that K-Agent does?
I
Maybe
can
give a
add.
concrete example. If we built, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, I'm not suggesting we do it, but if there was a VS Code plugin for a K-Agent, would that, like, what would be more natural for your working environments?
I think it depends. In some enterprise environment where you have things like OpenShift, people tend to be more UI driven. They open browser and then go that direction. But it's on the other hand, people who work more cloud, terminal access with more restricted environment, you just work with CTL and other tools, and also like breathing. And that's actually a good question to summarize. At the beginning of the conversation, you said that you changed something with the WebSockets and you removed the UI, so now UI has different streaming, right? In such environments, this connectivity might be a bit challenging because you may go through different machines, different kind of SSH Bastion terminals and stuff like this, right? So having UI, it's almost impossible unless you forward some ports and do some tunnels, right? So yeah, so I think terminal access in that situation helps, especially like we can type echo with predefined commands, predefined sessions.
Yeah.
And
From the SRE point of view, so the most of the cases, and especially for the all kind of AI agents and whatever, so the single terminal, I mean, for example, our editor, Cursor, VS Code, and whatever, and all kind of plugins. It can be cloud, it can be some kind of agents on infrastructure. This is the Flux operator agent, MCP, and whatever. So because of, I did some kind of measurements. So in case you are using the different tool, for example, some kind of chart, some kind of graphics, some kind of terminal, and whatever, for the real production issue, you spent about the 30 minutes. When you play on the just the single chat window, it can be 6 minutes to solve the issue. And also we play with the voice voice agents through the MCP, through the A2A Kagent also. It's 22 minutes. So, and that's why our choice may be, as you mentioned, some kind of plugins in a single tool that you are using for the code. This is our editor's IDE, actually. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Also, just to throw that out, how about a Chrome extension?
I'm not a big fan of Chromes.
Like, let's say browser extension,
Yeah, okay.
not be Chrome specific, right? Because I think, like, I would agree, like, we want to bring K-Agent to the place where majority of people are spending their days in, right?
Yeah.
Is that an editor? Is that like a plugin for VS Code or whatever it is, or if it's like a CLI?
I was thinking,
which
I was thinking to try like Headlamp with the K-agent, sort of. They have extensions, and it's possible to do it. I think Headlamp was bringing some attention recently, and
There's
I
also
think you
the,
mentioned. Yes.
I was gonna say there's also the idea. I think there's gonna be a level of like control or immersion that people, in other words, you got like power users, folks that actually want to like control the agents, and you just have folks who just gonna want to use them, right? And so I think the UI is gonna be a little different for those of us who are like the puppeteers, so to speak, versus those who are just watching the magic.
Yes, it's a good point, because what we see, let's say we have power users usually limited in number, right? If you can call them like level 1 support or something like this, and or level 3 support, sorry, and then you have people who actually just start analyzing on call. Maybe they just do initial analysis and so on, and they will work probably with kind of more UI and browser based.
Yeah, that's a really good different personas. Building the agents versus consuming the agents.
Right.
Okay, I think we're 50 minutes over. It's been great discussion. So Dimitro, by the way, your network maybe have some problem. I'm having a little bit trouble hearing you, so maybe we'll queue your demo for next time. And next week, just give everybody a heads up. A couple of us from Solo are going to travel to offsite, so I don't think we can have the meeting without.
Can we invite somebody else to host it?
That I'm not sure. I think somebody else can host it, but they would not be able to record it. That's the only
I
challenge.
mean, I'll be here. I'm traveling later in the afternoon.
Okay, so if that's the case,
we could still meet and chat, right?
Yeah,
So-
I may be here also.
Lynn, you know, when you said about my voice and speaking loudly, I know immediately what is the issue, because I know it in my memory. It means my headset was differently and my phone's pointing to the other direction.
Oh, you sound much
Okay.
better.
I
Did you
should
have graph
said it
rag set up,
40 minutes
or
ago. Okay.
were you using Simple Rag, or what was the brand? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
next week we'll still host a meeting. Then I probably won't be able to join. So
Okay.
all right, thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
yeah,
Thanks.
another reminder on Cube submissions. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.